Growing up, I never really understood why my mom did things the way she did. She was always loving, supportive, and seemingly overprotective, but there was always something more behind her actions, something that seemed a bit unconventional. I thought she was just a little extra when it came to the idea of keeping me safe and happy. It wasn't until I turned 18 that I began to understand the depth of my mother's decisions, especially one decision that changed the way I viewed relationships entirely. That was when I learned that my mom had handpicked 3 girls who she believed could give me the love, care, and understanding that I deserved. It all started one quiet Sunday afternoon, just a week before my graduation. I had been sitting at the kitchen table, chatting with Mom about my plans for the future. I was feeling unsure about leaving home for college. It wasn't the academic pressure that bothered me. It was the emotional distance I felt coming. I was leaving the comfort of my family behind, and honestly, I was scared of being alone. That was when my mom dropped the bombshell. "Honey," she started, her voice uncharacteristically serious. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about your future, and there's something I've been meaning to tell you, something I've been planning for years now." I was intrigued. "What is it, Mom?" "Well," she continued, her eyes twinkling slightly, "you know how you've always been a bit introverted? Not exactly the most social, always worried about fitting in." I nodded, feeling a little self-conscious. Mom wasn't wrong. I wasn't the type of guy who had a huge circle of friends. I had a few close friends, but when it came to relationships, especially romantic ones, I was always hesitant. I didn't feel comfortable enough to open up to anyone, and that's where my mom stepped in. "I've chosen 3 girls who I think will be perfect for you," she said matter-of-factly. "They're different from each other, but they all have something unique that will help you grow, something that will make you the person you're meant to be." At first, I thought she was joking. Maybe it was a light-hearted attempt to ease my anxiety about the transition into adulthood, but the look on her face told me this was no joke. "You see," Mom continued, "I've watched you, honey. You're a bit of a puzzle, and I've always been more than willing to help you figure it out. I wanted to make sure you don't have to face life alone. I wanted you to be surrounded by people who will help you grow into a well-rounded man. And these 3 girls, they are each different, but in their own way, they will teach you things about love, connection, and vulnerability." The first girl she introduced to me was Emily. Emily was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, full of energy, and always surrounded by a group of friends. She wasn't afraid to take risks and speak her mind. When I met her, I felt immediately overwhelmed. But as the weeks passed, I learned that Emily's fearless approach to life helped me step out of my shell. She encouraged me to speak up, to not be afraid of expressing my thoughts, and most importantly, to stop hiding from the world. Then there was Clara, the artist. Soft-spoken and thoughtful, she had this quiet energy that made me feel at peace whenever I was around her. She showed me the beauty of introspection, of looking inward and finding comfort in solitude. Clara taught me that it was okay to be introverted, that silence didn't have to be filled with anxiety or loneliness. Sometimes, being still and allowing your thoughts to flow freely was the best way to grow. The third girl was Sophie, a bookworm and a hopeless romantic. Sophie had this calming, nurturing aura about her that made everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. With her, I learned the power of patience and kindness. Sophie's love was gentle, never forceful, And it taught me how to be compassionate, not only toward others, but also toward myself. She made me realize that self-love was just as important as giving love to others. Each of these girls brought something special into my life. They weren't meant to replace each other, and they didn't compete for my affection. In a way, they complemented each other. Emily taught me to take risks and embrace the present. Clara showed me the importance of quiet introspection and being comfortable in my own skin. Sophie gave me the gift of love and patience, teaching me that real love isn't about rushing into things, but about building something solid over time. As I prepared to leave for college, I realized that my mom's decision wasn't about controlling my relationships or dictating my future. She just wanted me to be ready for the world, to be surrounded by people who would help me become the best version of myself. These 3 girls weren't just temporary figures in my life. They were pivotal in shaping who I was becoming. Each of them played a unique role in helping me navigate the complexities of love, vulnerability, and self-acceptance. And as I boarded the plane for my new adventure, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the foundation my mom had helped me build. Love, I learned, came in many forms, and sometimes it took a village to help someone truly understand its depth. As I settled into college, I realized how much I had changed. The familiar nerves I'd once had about meeting new people slowly faded, as I learned to embrace the unpredictability of life. But there was one thing that stuck with me more than anything else: my mother's words. "You don't have to do this alone." At first, it was hard to explain to my new friends why I was so open to all kinds of connections, why I didn't shy away from vulnerability or hold myself back from meeting people who were different from me. They didn't understand why I didn't mind talking about my emotions or reflecting on my experiences openly. It was a little strange for them. Most of my classmates were just navigating the typical college experience of parties, late-night study sessions, and a sea of fleeting friendships. I often found myself in conversations where I could feel the absence of genuine connection, where everything felt surface level. But that's when I realized something important. My mom's decision to introduce me to Emily, Clara, and Sophie had prepared me for something deeper. They had each helped me understand different layers of myself, and in turn, I could recognize what I needed in my relationships moving forward. One evening, as I sat on the steps outside the dorm building, I thought back to the last conversation I had with Emily before I left home. She had reminded me that while relationships could be complicated, they were also opportunities for growth. I thought about how I had been terrified of being vulnerable and letting anyone close. Emily had shattered that wall by showing me that the best relationships were built on honesty and openness. Then my thoughts turned to Clara. She had always been content in her quiet corner, sketching or reading. But somehow her calm energy was infectious. With Clara, I learned that I didn't need to constantly chase external validation. There was a quiet strength in simply existing as I was. Clara had a way of teaching me that peace wasn't something to chase, but something to cultivate. In my early weeks at college, I found myself leaning into this idea more, taking moments of solitude to recharge, reflect, and just be. And Sophie had shown me the value of kindness and patience. While our paths had diverged after my graduation, I found myself carrying the memory of her gentle advice on how to love and be loved. She had reminded me that love wasn't just about grand gestures, but the little things. Listening intently when someone spoke, offering comfort when it was needed most, or just being there through the rough patches, without demanding anything in return. I understood that love was about giving without expectations, and that love for oneself was just as important. It wasn't long before I started to build my own circle of friends and relationships in college. But now, when I looked at the people around me, I knew that what mattered wasn't how many friends I had, or how popular I was. It was the depth of the connections I made. I began to find people who shared the same values, who valued introspection, openness, and kindness. I no longer rushed into friendships or relationships just to fill a void, because I had learned that meaningful bonds didn't require force. Months passed, and I grew even more comfortable in my own skin. My mom's hand-picked trio of Emily, Clara, and Sophie were no longer just distant memories or faces in old photos. They had become integrated into who I was now. They had each laid a foundation for me, and as I built on that foundation, I found myself constantly learning, evolving, and improving. During my second semester, I received an unexpected message from Emily. It had been a while since we'd spoken, and I'd thought she was too busy with her new life to reach out. But when I opened the message, it was simple, yet profound. Hey, I hope everything's going great. I've been thinking a lot about you, and how you've changed. It's amazing to see how much more confident you've become. I hope you're learning the things I hoped for you. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Emily's boldness had always been something I admired, but now I understood it better. She had been right all along. Confidence came from knowing yourself and embracing the experiences that shaped you. Soon after, I also heard from Clara, who had gone on to pursue her art career. She mentioned how she had been thinking about the quiet moments we'd shared, sketching and talking about life. Sometimes, she wrote, we have to let go of the noise around us to find our true purpose. Keep embracing that stillness, okay? And then there was Sophie, who had sent me a long letter filled with thoughtful reflections on the importance of self-love and kindness. She had found herself in a relationship and was learning how to balance her love for others with the love she had for herself. Take your time, she wrote, and know that love, real love, doesn't rush. It grows in its own time. It became clear to me that my mom's decision wasn't just about finding someone to love me. It was about teaching me the importance of love in its many forms. The love for myself, the love I could offer others, and the deep, meaningful connections that were worth waiting for. As I sat in my dorm room late one night, reflecting on my journey, I realized that my mom had done more than choose 3 girls to love me. She had given me the tools to understand what true love was, not as a simple feeling, but as a lifelong process of growth, understanding, and shared experiences. And while the girls played important roles in my life, it was my journey that truly defined me. With that realization, I knew I was ready for whatever the world had in store. And I would always carry the lessons from Emily, Clara, and Sophie with me. Lessons of courage, peace, and compassion, knowing that love in its truest form was something I could give and receive in abundance. As I stepped into the bustling campus, filled with students running between classes, laughing and engaging in passionate discussions, I felt a rush of mixed emotions. Excitement about the new chapter in my life, blended with a lingering sense of unease. I was no longer in the familiar embrace of home, surrounded by the people who had shaped my worldview, and who knew me inside and out. But even in this sea of faces, I felt prepared for whatever came next. It wasn't just the knowledge I had gained through school that made me feel ready. It was the lessons I had learned from the 3 girls my mom had introduced me to. They had each shown me a different aspect of love, helping me to recognize my worth, and in doing so, slowly chipping away at the walls I had built around myself. At first, I thought I could handle this transition by myself, simply relying on the lessons of independence my mom had always taught me. But what I didn't realize was how important it was to still be connected, to not lose sight of the value of human connection, just because I was stepping into the world alone. It all started with Emily. Her presence lingered in my thoughts like an anchor, reminding me to push through the discomfort. Emily was the embodiment of confidence. When she spoke with conviction, her words never wavering. I had learned from her that life wasn't about waiting for things to happen. It was about grabbing hold of opportunities, no matter how daunting they seemed. I had joined a student organization focused on personal development, partly because of the challenge she had issued me during our last conversation. "Don't be afraid to speak up," she'd said. "You never know where a single conversation might lead." With her voice echoing in my head, I forced myself to approach a group of strangers at the organization's first meeting. Surprisingly, they were welcoming, and as the weeks went by, I found myself more involved and confident, taking on leadership roles that I had previously shied away from. I realized that Emily was right. If I didn't take charge of my own story, I'd let it pass me by. Then, there was Clara. It had been weeks since I last heard from her, but her words still lingered. Clara had always been the quiet one, the one who didn't need a crowd to feel complete. With her, I learned that it was okay to be still. I didn't have to be in constant motion, filling my life with noise. Clara had given me the gift of introspection, of taking a step back and evaluating my own feelings. When things became overwhelming, when the stress of exams and new friendships seemed too much to bear, I would remember Clara's peaceful energy. I started taking time each day to walk around the campus, with no distractions, just my thoughts. In those moments of silence, I rediscovered the power of being comfortable with myself. Clara had helped me realize that being alone didn't always equate to loneliness. Sophie, too, had left an indelible mark on me. It was her gentle, nurturing spirit that had shown me how love wasn't about grand gestures, but about the small, everyday moments. Her unwavering patience, her thoughtful care for others, had taught me that the true depth of love was built on compassion, not obligation. In college, I found myself being more patient with my roommates, more understanding when things didn't go the way I expected. I realized that Sophie's approach to love was something I wanted to carry forward, to give love freely, but to also make sure I was taking care of myself in the process. As the months passed, I grew more comfortable in this new chapter of my life. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments of doubt. Still times when I felt lost. But now, I had the tools to face those moments with grace. The 3 girls had each given me something precious. Emily had shown me the power of confidence and action. Clara had helped me embrace stillness and self-reflection. And Sophie had taught me the importance of kindness and patience in all my relationships. One evening, as I sat in the dorm's common room, scrolling through messages from home, I received a text from my mom. She had always been a silent supporter, her actions speaking louder than any words ever could. The message was simple but powerful. "I'm proud of you. You're exactly where you need to be." Those words filled me with warmth and reassurance. As much as I had grown and learned from others, I realized that my mom's unwavering belief in me had been the catalyst for everything. It was her decision to guide me, to trust that I would find my own path, that had set me on this journey. And in that moment, I finally understood that love, in all its forms, was not just something you received. It was something you gave, something you shared, something that grew stronger with each passing day. I may have left home to carve my own way, but I carried the love of Emily, Clara, Sophie, and my mom with me. And as I walked through the gates of my college, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew that love would always be the thread that connected me to the people who mattered most.